Hey, what's going on everybody? Zach here, and welcome back to part 2 of our 1957 Gibson ES-175 restoration. If you have not seen part 1, go ahead and go check that out. Basically what we're doing here is this guitar, I bought it basically like this, and I put a lot of reproduction parts on it. We're kind of undoing some of that. We're taking this guitar and we're putting it back pretty close to original. Real quick here, again, go watch the first video. It's a 57 ES-175D, believed to be a factory refinish in cherry red from the early 1960s, which is awesome and very, very rare. But yeah, so we're going to put some original pickups in it. We're going to put some original wiring in it. Again, go check out part 1. This is part 2. Now we're getting ready to put this thing back together. We have to start our wiring and look at the pickups that we're gonna go through, and I've actually already done all that. I forgot to shoot this part 2 intro, so all that's ready to go back in now, but we're gonna roll back a little bit and you guys are gonna see the process of building the wiring for this guitar and checking out the pickups we're going to put in it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and go into the workbench area. I don't know what else to call it. Okay, let's go. Okay guys, as I said, welcome back to part 2 of restoring my 1957 Gibson ES-175. We have our 1962 pots here. They are ready to go. One thing I wanted to talk about before we start on here is, I think I mentioned this in the first one too, we're not going to wire this like a traditional ES-175. An ES-175 comes with what they call pot cans. I don't think I have any here. I think they're all at home. And what it is the pot goes inside of it, and it's a big cover that goes over top of it and it encases the pot. I don't like them. I don't like dealing with them, so therefore I'm not going to use them. We're going to wire this more like a Les Paul, because when they have those pot cans, you can't hook up, the capacitor like this, like would be in a Les Paul, And I'm just saying, between the two pots. So they had them like this, it was mounted to the top of the pot, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to do that. We're going to wire it like a 50s style Les Paul, and we're going to have the ground strap on the pots as well. Again, it's not totally correct. On an ES-175, they would have used braided wire on top of the pot cans to ground everything together. This is going to work just fine. I have no plans of selling this guitar, so I'm just going to do it my way. The components are right. Our pots are not in very good condition. You can see there's a lot of solder on these two. I bought these off of either Reverb or eBay, I don't remember. I didn't pay very much for them, which is good, because sometimes these 50s and 60s pots, these things can bring like $1,000 for a matched set of pots. That is outrageous. And that's part of the reason why I didn't buy original 57 pickups is I have the patent numbers. Why spend $8 grand on a set of 57 PAFs? Or maybe even more than that, because the prices are just going absolutely insane on everything vintage and all of the parts as well. So yeah, that didn't make any sense. That's why we're doing what we're doing here. Like I said, I'm going to wire it like a 50s Les Paul, and it's going to be great. So now we have to go cut the switch wires. I'm not going to reuse the wires that I took off of here. It's good quality wire. When I put this thing together, I was not as good at wiring as I am currently, so I'm just going to go ahead and redo everything. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and do that now, and then we'll come back when I have a little bit more progress here. Okay guys, just real quick, I wanted to show you this awesome machine here. If you work in the guitar industry and you use a lot of braided wire, you want one of these. Because, when I cut braided lead wire, I cut, hundreds of them at a time sometimes, and stripping the end off of them by hand is a pain. This does it for you. Check this out. I did not have this when I made the first wiring harness for this guitar, but check it out. It's got a depth stop, and oh man, if you're doing a bunch of these at once, this is awesome. So these are our switch wires here. This is the other short one. So this is going to go from the toggle switch to the pot, just that fast. And then our long wire here is going to have, this is going to the jack. We'll have one normal length. Should cut that a little more. There we go. And then this one, we want it to be a little bit longer because it's got to go over the top of the switch. So I'm going to kind of bypass that stop there and do about that. Like I said, this is a luxury I did not have when I built that first wiring harness. But if you work with braided wire a lot, get you one of these. It's called a Carpenter swing blade. Okay, so we have our switch here. It's all wired up with our new wires. Looking pretty good. I'm gonna see if I can find a better switch tip for this. This is just kind of a generic Switchcraft amber tip. I'm gonna see if I can find a Catalan one. I probably have one laying around somewhere. I don't feel like buying an original switch tip because even when I put this guitar together, like I said, 5 or 6 years ago, I think an original Catalan switch tip was like $300. Yeah, no thank you. They're probably even more now. And quick tip, by the way, if you ever have to ship a vintage Gibson guitar of any sort, or even a modern one for that matter, always remove the switch tip. Always. Put it in a baggie and put it in the case. I had a bad experience with that one time. I was working on a 58 Les Paul Special, and it was one of the first few times I actually shipped a vintage Gibson guitar. I left the switch tip on, and it arrived, and the tip exploded. Literally, like shattered into a million pieces. $300 switch tip. That was a mistake. Never did that again. But yeah, so always remember to remove those. But anyways, so we got this all wired up. Another quick tip here, when you're making a switch harness, you know, measured all the lengths of the lead wires, and you want to know which one is the bridge, take a Sharpie or something, mark it, color code it. So I know this is the bridge, this one has nothing, so it's the neck, and this is the long one that goes to the jack. Okay, so at this point, we are ready to start assembling our wiring harness here. I'm going to do it outside of the guitar, and then once we go to you know, get the guitar in here, pretty much everything will be ready to go in. I might even hook the pickups up, because if you guys recall, I pulled the whole harness and pickups out of it at the same time. We may do that again with reinstalling it. So I don't know, we'll see. I'm going to put together the rest of this harness. I'm going to get the pickups ready. I got to put the covers on and change. I still have to change the lead wire on this pickup. I'm going to go ahead and do that now, I think. But yeah, we're getting closer. So good progress. Just one more thing I forgot to talk about here. I wanted to talk about the pots a little bit before we install them. Like I said, they're Central Lab pots, and these things are so special. I love these pots. They just have a feel to them. You got that click. Man, they're great pots. The taper is amazing. If you are going to use new pots, there's a couple of options out there. My favorite currently are these. These are CTS pots made by Mojotone. Mojotone specs them out. They have a very similar feel and taper to the originals, and the values are often higher than 500K as well, which is kind of what you want. Which leads me to my next thing. Let's talk about pot values for a minute. These are 500K pots. They're all marked that. They're all 500K audio taper. Let's take a look, shall we? 620. Hold on a second. 790. Oh, come on. 630. And 540. So, only one of these was even remotely close to being 500K. And that is very common with these old pots. And I think that's part of the reason why the guitars sound the way that they do. You know, those old vintage Gibsons. Because a lot of the times, these pots are going to read more than 500K. Not always, though. I've personally tested these, and I've tested quite a few of them over the years. I would say probably close to 50, maybe even more than that. I've seen them from around 400K to over 900K. Almost 1 meg on a pot that's marked 500. And it can actually make for a pretty cool sound. You know, most people think you gotta have 500 exactly. I tend to prefer them a little bit higher than that. I would say most of the original pots that I've tested have been in the kind of 530 to 580 range, I would say has been the most common. But again, it's not unusual to see them over 600. It's not that unusual to see them under 500. but I've seen more that are over than ones that are under. Yeah, just kind of an interesting little tidbit there. It can change the sound. Sometimes your pots and electronics and stuff can be just as important as the pickups. You always want to have quality pots and electronics in your guitar. So, update. At this point, most of our wiring is done. We have the two pickups here. We finally got the covers on. I changed the lead on that one pickup, so they're really nice now. So we got plenty of lead. Those are ready to go. Our wiring harness is almost ready. I still have to solder on the jack. I got to get some PVC insulation for that. We did the best we could with the pots on this thing. Like I said, they were absolutely covered in solder, especially these volume pots. They were an absolute disaster. I cleaned them up the best that I could. It's gonna work. You guys, if you've watched the channel at all, you know I'm a very big fan of the cleanest wiring humanly possible. And that's not going to be the case on this just because of what we're dealing with here. And I gave a little bit of extra room on the edges here with the pot grounds just so nothing's going to touch and ground out. Because that is something you have to be careful when you're doing a hollow or semi-hollow job. That's kind of why I think part of why they use those pot cans is just to keep things from grounding out. But it'll be okay. We'll get it in there and it's going to be just fine. Everything is a little bit longer than it needs to be so we can kind of route the wires any way that we need to. So at this point, I am ready to hook up the pickups to the wiring harness. Like I said, wire up this jack to get a little bit of insulation in there. And then this is all ready to go back into the guitar. After that, then we have to just solder our bridge ground, which will get soldered to the braided lead wire on the pickup, which is how they did it back in the day. And then we can start reassembling the entire thing. I think I am going to call it for today. I'm going to come back tomorrow. Today's Saturday, so I'll come back tomorrow on Sunday and we will finish up this project. I'm not going to cut the video here. We're not going to do a part 3. We're just going to go ahead and cut to tomorrow. Okay, a lot of progress today though. So, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay guys, it is the next day. We are just about done here. We have all of our wiring in place. We got our switch good. Pots are in. Jack is in, everything is tightened down. We are ready to mount the pickups, but I'll show you guys just real quick here. Kind of get back here, you can see the that sort of fade line where the original tailpiece was. That's pretty cool. We got our pickups there, looking really good. All right, look at that nice fretboard too, Brazilian rosewood, of course. I might condition that a little bit. This guitar could actually use a refret as well at some point. It's a little, they're not terrible, but they're still the original small 57 style frets. I'd like to put some bigger frets on it at some point. But yeah, we're ready to go ahead and mount the pickups here. And another thing I made sure of is when you look down through the F-hole, especially once the pick guard is on, you're not going to see anything, which is good. Because I hate it when you look in the F-hole of an arch top and all you see is you know, a mess of wires in there. I don't like that. So luckily, that is not going to be the case with this. Oh yeah, that looks good. Close up on pickups again there. You see those covers look really nice. All right. We are just about done here. We are ready to start buttoning everything up. So we got to get the Bigsby back on. We got to put the screws in here. I'll start doing that. And, well, I think that's going to be about it, except for getting strings on it and get it set up. So I'm going to finish putting this together, and we will see you guys here in a minute. All right, guys, we are finally done with this thing. It's been a really fun weekend project. It's all ready to go. And there you have it. It's all back together in one piece. Everything is adjusted real nice, and it came out absolutely fantastic. We have our early 1960s Gibson patent number pickups, our 1962 Central Lab pots, and now this guitar is pretty much correct. Again, 1957 Gibson ES-175, refinished at the Gibson factory, I think, in the early 1960s, now complete with early 60s pickups and electronics. I just couldn't be happier with it, how it turned out. It sounds great, it looks great. Really, the only thing left to replace on this would be the Bigsby, and like I said, I don't think I'm really going to do that. And I definitely want to keep a Bigsby on it. I don't want to put the tailpiece on So if any of you do have a 50s or 60s B6, I think? Yeah, B6 Bigsby, let me know down in the comments below. I might buy it from you, but we'll probably just leave this one on here. I'm really happy with it. Yeah, great guitar. I think we had probably better plug it in, right? So we got a 65 reissue Fender Deluxe reverb down here on the floor. We might even throw a Greer Lightspeed overdrive on it as well. But at this point, I think we're going to go ahead and play you guys out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take it easy, and we'll see you next time.